In the old days, aircraft were a simple affair. Variable pitch propellers were quite unheard of. The engines were not supercharged. They had only a few cylinders and no complicated automatic devices. The electrical and radio installations were comparatively straightforward. The armament was simple. One man in those days was able to maintain an aircraft on his own. Today, it's no longer possible for one man to be an expert in all the very complicated and specialized parts of a modern aircraft, so it's become necessary to divide the maintenance into separate trades. For instance, A for airframe. This includes parts such as the tail unit, main planes, undercarriage, cockpit hood, arrestor hook, flap, undercarriage and trim controls. In fact, the whole of the aircraft except the engine. Next, E for engine. For instance, the propeller, coolant control valve, radiator and oil cooler, oil tank, starter breech, throttle and propeller controls, and everything connected with the engine. Then there's O for ordnance. This is the armament. Bomb rack, torpedo rack, smoke bomb stowage and chute, machine gun, torpedo director control, ammunition drums, and everything appertaining to armament. Next, L. L for electrical, to distinguish from E for engines. For instance, the fuse box, generator control panel, bomb selector switches, camera switch, bomb fusing unit, landing lights, and all electrical wiring and apparatus. Radio is added to the trades already mentioned. This is a separate branch. It includes the transmitting set, receiving set, beacon set, fixed aerial, trailing aerial, the Morse key, and all radio accessories. We are now in a hangar on a Royal Naval Air Station. We'll take a look round and see some of the maintenance and repair ratings at work on various types of aircraft so that you'll have some idea of their jobs. First, we'll take A. You remember that's airframe. Tire covers are often damaged when aircraft are being taxied, and the airframe rating must look out for cuts and any small stones which may be embedded in the cover. As you can imagine, if a tire bursts when an aircraft is landing, a nasty accident may be caused. With folding wings, an aircraft can fit onto any size aircraft carrier lift. Wing folding mechanism must be tested periodically. Retractable undercarriages have failed to come down. Their maintenance is very important. This is an American aircraft, a Wildcat. Another of A's jobs is to keep all the flying controls clean and in perfect order. This is another American aircraft, a Corsair. No, he's not behind bars. He's checking the tension on the bracing wires. This is the sort of job that's done on a daily inspection, usually known as a DI. Wing folding mechanism needs to be kept well greased. There's a good deal of strain here, and grease keeps the mechanism working smoothly. Here, an airframe rating is lubricating the ailerons. Arrestor hooks must be checked for signs of damage. A pretty landing isn't much good on a carrier if the hook has failed to come down. Well, that shows you just a few of the airframe ratings jobs. Now we'll take a look at the men who attend to the engines and see what keeps them busy. For instance, the renewing of starter cartridges is done by them. They remove air screw spinners so that the mechanism can be inspected for corrosion and given a general overhaul. The engine men look after the refueling of the aircraft. The end of a perfect overhaul. As this aircraft had been flying for a total of over 300 hours, the propeller needed a checkover. The PO tests the job before it's passed as being correct. There are magnetos to be adjusted. The gap between the contact breaker points must be accurate to within 1/1000th of an inch. It's the engine ratings who remove the ignition harness, but the actual testing is carried out by the electrical ratings, as we shall see later. When flying, engines must be kept cool. They've got a hot job to do. Leaving the engine ratings, we next take a look at the ordnance men doing a few of their jobs. The removal of guns is one of their responsibilities. Doesn't this fellow know he should never point a gun at anyone? That's better. Ordnance men realize the importance of keeping gun mechanisms thoroughly clean. Yes, you're right, that is a wren. Ashore, wrens very often work with the maintenance ratings in all the different trades. This one is helping in the rearming of the aircraft. The ordnance men have to be familiar with all sorts of guns. It needs a good deal of experience to know just how to remove and fit the many different types. This is a .5 Browning gun in a revolving turret on an Avenger. The gun is being cleaned while undergoing a DI. Torpedo release mechanism must be kept in good working order. Guns are stripped down in the armory. This Browning machine gun is having a thorough overhaul. The breech feed mechanism is removed for reloading. This man's protecting the cannon against damage while it's being removed from the aircraft. Well, that'll give you some idea of the ordnance ratings responsibilities. Now for the electrical ratings. You remember, they wear a badge with the letter L, so that they're not confused with the engine ratings. Electrical jobs crop up all over the aircraft. Here's that ignition harness again, all ready to be tested. Aircraft generators are tested in the workshops. On this machine, generators can be tested under conditions similar to those they'll experience in the air. The bomb rack. The electrician does his part to make sure that this works all right. Operated from the cockpit is the upward identification light. This is used for signaling. Landing lamps are also operated from the cockpit. On being tested, this one was found to be unserviceable, known as US for short. Distribution boxes must be checked frequently. It looks as though one of those terminals is US. Battery terminals need frequent attention. It's important that these connections should be kept in good repair. Another landing lamp job. Here, the alignment of the reflector is being adjusted. Well, that's just a few of the electrical ratings responsibilities. And now, last but by no means least, the radio mechanics. Let's see how they fit into the scheme. Some aerial masts are not very big, but they're nonetheless important for that. Wrens are often to be found doing radio jobs. This girl is tuning and aligning the receiver on a shortwave frequency. There are insulators to be cleaned and aerial wires to be checked. Here, one of the insulators is found to be loose. Aerials encounter all sorts of climatic conditions, and new ones must be fitted from time to time. The radio mechanic tests the connections on transmitter sets before starting to tune. Radio sets are removed for the replacing of valves. Some of you may recognize this aircraft. It's that ancient warrior, the Swordfish, born 1935 and still going strong. Soldering radio connections is delicate work. The radio ratings lot is mostly small jobs, but they certainly make a big difference. Well, now you've some idea of how the various trades dovetail together. You can see that each specialist is of little use without the other. The best results are achieved by teamwork, and if any one man fails to do his job properly, then not only is he letting down his team, but probably a pilot and aircraft as well. Remember, when you're in an aircraft carrier at sea, you won't be able to ring up for a reserve aircraft as you can on a shore base. Here, the aircraft are of course repaired and maintained in the hangar. This Seafire has had its daily inspection, and the maintenance team are just giving it a final look over while it's being taken up to the flight deck. Warning of enemy aircraft in the vicinity has been received, and here 3 aircraft arranged in readiness. The maintenance men remain on deck, hoping to see their aircraft go into action. The enemy aircraft are now reported to be heading in this direction. Commander flying gives the scramble warning. Here's Jerry, and he's heading for trouble.
Achtung, Spitfire! Aufpassen!
Good teamwork gets its reward. The victor returns, slightly the worse for battle. With that damaged tail, the pilot's finding it hard to control the plane. Will he make it? Yes, he makes it, but only just. The maintenance men now take over from the handling party. No time must be lost in having the damage repaired. It won't be long before the maintenance men will have the aircraft fighting fit again. That's another one to be chalked up. Unserviceable aircraft are a liability, particularly in a carrier. If there's a shortage of planes and carriers have to go back for replacements, they become vulnerable to attack from the air, and they can't do their main job of providing air cover either for the fleet or landings. The maintenance and repair men are the men behind the pilots, and the pilots depend on them to keep the planes serviceable. Fleet air arm maintenance is one of the most important jobs in the whole of the service. It's the maintenance men who, by their efforts and knowledge, keep the aircraft airworthy. Keep them flying is their aim.